Thank you very much, Gary, and good evening, everyone, and also Ramadan Kareem to those who celebrate. As Gary mentioned, I have been fortunate to be in Saudi Arabia for quite a few years, 18 years and counting. And in this period of time, we had a lot of time and opportunities to visit as many difficult to reach locations as possible. So I hope to share some of those experiences with you today during this talk. Being such a large country, as Gary mentioned, it is not surprising that Saudi Arabia has such a diverse landscape. The varied landscapes, they always tell a story of nature's transformations, especially across those vast geologic times. What we see today on the surface are weathered and eroded rocks that have been exposed to many changes over time. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm not moving. Yes. So the rocks that we see today have not only distant geologic past, but also geographic provenance. A long story short, they were deposited and formed over millions of years in different climate conditions, also on different latitudes. So they formed continents that no longer exist and are still in motion. The Arabian Peninsula has been for most of its history a part of the African continent, and it moved across the Earth's surface together with other tectonic plates. Its crust has been formed and reworked in this process. Only around 30 million years ago, at the onset of the Red Sea rifting, caused Arabia to gradually start breaking away from Africa. And this process continues today with the further opening of the Red Sea. The Arabian Peninsula can be divided into two distinct structural units: Arabian Shelf to the east and the Arabian Shield to the west. The Arabian Shelf is younger of these two units and composed of sedimentary rocks like limestone, sandstone, evaporites, and lots of sand. Its history is related to numerous marine and non-marine transgressions and glaciations. The Arabian Shield comprises igneous and metamorphic rocks like basalt, diorite, gabbro, granitoids, and is currently of major economic interest because of abundance of rare earth elements as well, and the rare metals that are contained in those rocks. The granitoids are further often enriched with radioactive elements such as uranium, thorium, and potassium, and they offer possible alternatives in future energy production. The distribution of rock units can be seen on this simplified geologic map, and let me use the marker here. And if we look at the geologic units, so this is the part of the Arabian platform and Arabian Shield in this area, we see that the strata of the eastern of the Arabian Shelf, sedimentary strata, are slightly deformed. Those are the sedimentary deposits of limestone, sandstone, gypsum, and sand, and rich in carbonate and carbonate rocks and chalk. The kind of deformation that they have here is caused by the collision with the Eurasian plate. These collisions, they also caused the formation of thrusts, faults, and folds, and weakened those sedimentary strata, also causing all kinds of vertical joints that further weaken the rock. And now to ease you into the Saudi Arabian landscapes, I have selected the first area, which is kind of close to home, close to your home in the UAE. This is the area of Hamra Juda. It's a gradually disintegrating plateau because of the processes of dissolution. Hamra Juda lies, as you see here on this map, close to the Al-Aqsa oasis, 120 kilometers west of this oasis in the eastern province. And because of the horizontal beds that vary in composition and weather in different speeds, we have here an example of differential weathering, which creates these pedestal rocks, mushroom rocks, of which this area is famous for. But there is more. Preceding, this is the plateau of Hamra Juda. So this is not only those separated mushroom rocks and cuestas, but there is also a butte that precedes this whole plateau, dissected plateau, which is not very tall, perhaps 80 meters, 100 meters tall, and gradually dissolving. This butte is about 30 meters tall, and it's called Juda's Thumb locally because it lies close to the village of Judah. This kind of dissolution environment is full of rock pillars that you can see on the pictures here, and crevasses and caves that are called by dissolution as well, and these spectacular pedestal rocks. But there is more elements of dissolution, more formations that show this dissolution of the landscape. We are moving further to the west. Please notice here where we are on the map of Saudi Arabia. Dissolution is responsible for the formation of huge sinkholes and crater-like depressions. Here in the area of Burj Al Duwaira. This is an aerial image. Perhaps it's nice if you focus on this tiny little dot here. This is our car. This is the size of this feature. Yet depressions have a lot interesting things going from the past as well. Depressions in the landscape offer excellent accumulation spots for things like fossils, shark teeth, as well as stone tools. And they can still be found in those low-lying areas here around Kurais, oxidized shells, and those famous shark teeth. I mean, this is the only ones I found. Some people are more lucky to find actually bigger pieces. But anyway, the idea is to just realize that this area has been many times under the sea and only recently is dry land. Further towards the west, and also in those depressions in lower lying areas, there are which are forming a part of intracontinental depressions of Central Arabia. Plants take advantage of the slightly better moisture conditions and soft sand that offer purchase. And there are several natural gardens occurring in those depressions. This is some of them: Raudat Koraim, Raudat Nura, Raudat Tinhat, and the area around Tumeir. Raudat means gardens, so also in Arabic, these areas are known for their flowery presence. All kinds of plants are visible there during the spring. And of course, they always cover large areas, staying within their communities. Desert campion, and on this picture, lots of flowers of desert amaryllis, wall rocket, the desert iris, and chamomile. All these flowers have an opportunity to benefit from the depressions and use the moisture and the soil, which is not always available in other locations when the desert floor is stony. Now moving closer to Riyadh, just north of Riyadh is Atumama Depression, which marks the Jurassic Cretaceous contact within the interior homocline of Central Arabia, and evolved tectonically by extensional faulting, and was further modified by geomorphic processes like weathering and erosion, as well as dissolution. It contains faults, dissolution and collapse features, sinkholes, deep canyons, and the large part of this depression is now within the borders of King Khalid Royal Reserve, which means this is a protected area. And I'm very happy about this because these sediments are extremely fragile. If people were allowed to explore on their own, not sticking to the paths, they will be destroyed. They are really very soft sediments, left and right, and incredible geology on top of that. A large part of this depression is now the park. The park has reintroduced species of oryx and gazelle. And what they do to try to keep the animals and plants alive, they began by providing vegetation, let's say trying to restore the vegetation where it was possible. And only then they introduced the gazelle and the oryx in small numbers. They want to keep the animals sustaining themselves with the plants available in the park, which I think is a very good idea. Only feeding animals is not exactly trying to restore something, but it is difficult anyway. This kind of subjects are, I mean, there is always trial and error what you can achieve. But what I wanted to mention here about this park is that large areas in this place are covered by sandstone concretions or calcite concretions. You can see them here, kind of growing on the surface of the wadi, and here as well, a large area, I think about 100 square meters, literally covered by these round concretions. And this is actually what is appearing from under the marine sediments that lay on top. So these are our first sandstone deposits that we see during these presentations, but there will be a lot more. Many of these bodies cover large areas, like here in the park, and concretions formed by precipitation of mineral cement within spaces between sand particles. So they are forming through an accretion process, and they always form within sedimentary layers early in the burial process, before the rest of the sediment is hardened into rock. Then later on, weathering and erosion expose them back onto the surface. Concretions are not unusual for arid areas, and definitely not for Saudi Arabia. There are plenty of them throughout the country, just as there are so many sandstone deposits. But there are, as I said about this park, this is the some of the sediments and some of the fossils that you can find without the park. So millions of years of history left behind the fossils of oysters, gastropods, and clams. There are lots of trace fossils visible in the limestone. and evaporates, very fragile, evaporates within the strata, eroding only, their erosion is only slowed down because of the duri crust on top of the strata that cover them. There is also in this area, there are even aluminum ores of bauxite that also point to the wetter periods, humid periods when there was where there were plants growing and there was some kind of semblance of soil on which later on was allowed for production of this ore. While I was talking about these concretions, they are always very interesting and kind of cool to look at, and definitely exciting find in the desert. Even in the most boring areas, surprisingly, there is things that you kind of stumble upon and they take your breath away, like this rock over here, and a concretion, extremely chaotic and extremely colorful, found in the area of Silil al-Miyahia to the south east of Riyadh. And within the kind of featureless desert space, desert sediment, only punctuated by the black areas that lay slightly higher above. And when we were driving through this area, when I saw them first, I mean, like everybody would probably think, oh, these are petrified trees, because this is exactly how they look like. Huge logs that look like petrified trees. But they are also concretions, a different kind, that form chaotically, and they form in the braided stream environment. When the mineral-rich water was flowing through this channel, through this depression, kind of, or let's say area which was sloping down, it gradually cemented the walls and then the top of the tube, first forming the tubes, then filling it and forming logs. And unlike the concretions that we saw previously that were round and structured and very elegant, this here, the cementation process begins chaotically and resulting in these kind of differently shaped bodies. Here, another type of concretion, way smaller. They are about 10 centimeters in size. And just to make sure that we are not talking about petrified wood, we see the sedimentation here and the water flow marks. And even in this kind of concretion, we can see a pebble that got into this log, but that cannot be a petrified wood. Moving away from the briefly from the sandstones back into the limestone territory, but a little bit different than before. This is the next major unit of the landscape in the Central Arabia is the Tuwaiq escarpment. Of the total outcrop is about 1,000 kilometers and no wider than 85 kilometers. But the beds, they reach 1,100 meters deep. So there is quite a sedimentation, and this escarpment, or this mountain, Tuwaiq Mountain, is part of the largest worldwide sedimentary plateaus. Jebel Tuwaiq, what we call it, is a narrow escarpment that cuts through the Nasht Plateau, and the limestone rocks of the Tuwaiq, they come from Middle Jurassic age-wise and have a west-facing cliffs. This image here is Jebel Tuwaiq Tuwaiq Mountain at the point of Kazm al-Qidiyah. located about 35 kilometers from Riyadh. And there is currently ongoing construction of a new amusement park in this section of the escarpment, which is very unfortunate, we always say, because this is the highest part of the escarpment. This is actually the 600 meters height of the escarpment is reached in this Riyadh area. And then it slopes down to the north and to the south. It slopes gradually down and until it disappears here south at the end, reaching Wadi al-Dawasir and the edges of the empty quarter. On various horizons and within the Tuwaiq escarpments, there are plenty of fossils. As for this period, there are stony corals, bivalves, gastropods, brachiopods, and they all indicate the position in quiet, excuse me, quiet water environment. Even on top of the Tuwaiq escarpment, you can see plenty of corals. It's a very nice site to explore the fossils on top of such a tall, impressive landscape feature. As far as other areas of the Tuwaiq escarpment, this is there are also lots of areas of weathering and erosion, cliff retreat, lots of chimney formations like this one here, mesas, buttes, and wadis draining eastwards in a dendritic pattern. If you are looking down from the top of the escarpment, you look over a vast area, vast graben of this escarpment, and only you can only see those wadis spreading into the horizon. A very beautiful area. Where there is, of course, especially now it has been raining quite a bit, and as usual, there is abundant wadis in this kind of eroding landscape with temporary pools that are important both to local flora and fauna and transitory birds like the steppe eagle. Steppe eagles are always passing yearly over this area, as well as honey buzzards. In terms of water flow that is sustained, there are permanent pools as well, and they obviously offer shelter to many more species, among others toads here introduced, Eurasian frog as well, a fish, I don't know unfortunately what type, but you see the fish here all the time in these pools of Shaib Lua, also not far from Riyadh. If we move away to the west from the Tuwaiq escarpment, we always encounter sandstones. And these sandstone formations are usually older than the limestone, than the Jurassic. They are mostly Triassic or Paleozoic in age sandstones, and they always look somehow more attractive, perhaps to me, I don't know, but the sandstone formations in Saudi are very diverse, yet they still have a lot in common. This natural arch is in the area of Tariq, when there is also nearby an ibex reserve. And this place is also now a nature reserve. Just maybe 50 kilometers away, there are other areas. One is called Jebel Baloum, which still has the limestone capping the mountain, and underneath sedimentation changes drastically, also reaching those sandstones. So here in this picture, there is many more concretions, different form, different shapes. This is the environment that you find in this area. Also, oh yeah, this one is called Hazem Makruk. And in Jebel Baloum, there are also canyons, short canyons, but several of them. And they all, like in within the other sedimentary or sandstone plateaus, sandstone areas, they have these pebbles or quartz pebbles that mark different horizons. On this picture here, which is about a 80 meters climb from what is now the Wadi bed, you find a plateau that is completely weathered and stripped from the sediment, and only the horizon of these pebbles is laying. That most likely points to the time where rivers were flowing and water flows were capturing those pebbles on this horizon. If you look at the sandstones surrounding this area, there are more of those horizons with pebbles in them. So that means that those episodes of flowing rivers have been repeated many times over in the past. Going a little bit north, but still on the margin of the Arabian Shelf, so we are still staying within the shelf, are Triassic sandstone cropping out in the area of Mugaira. This area and some other also a little bit south, closer to Riyadh, they were places where paleo lakes have been found in the past. And around those areas, these slightly higher elevated sandstones, they are often carrying the marks of those people that lived in the areas. So we have a lot of petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are always interesting. It's like somebody left a note, make a drawing of what kind of animals and they see, or what things are important for them in their lives. Especially the animals are always interesting to see. We can almost imagine sitting at the edge of this sandstone, making a drawing overlooking the Paleo Lake, and perhaps seeing all these animals that roam the area surrounding it. But being on the edge of the Arabian Shelf and keeping in mind that there were many, many episodes of sea flooding and retreat, we always find some marine still areas containing some marine fossils, or like in this marks. This is marine horizons high. There are ripple marks that are in a different sedimentation, perhaps sweet water. So it's all kind of interesting what you can find among the sandstone formation. Triassic sandstone is an old sandstone, has seen a lot, and in this case we can definitely say that old is beautiful. These are the taphony structures left in the old sandstone. The sandstone witnessed, I mean, from this age, they witnessed dramatic geological and climatic as well as evolutionary changes. And they represent a very long depositional history. The time of breakup of supercontinent Pannotia and the gradual assembly of Pangaea, then the breakup of Pannotia that coincided with a dramatic rise of sea levels, followed by the assembly of huge continent Gondwana 510 million years ago. So the history in the stone and the marks left through the geomorphic processes are definitely astounding. You don't always have to go to the north of Saudi Arabia to see fabulous sandstones like here. They are much closer to Riyadh. However, we are moving forward, and I'm still on the margin of the Arabian. Sometimes these sandstones that we will be looking will be overlain by, will be sitting on the Precambrian granitic basement of the Arabian Shelf, but this is not one of them yet. These are the sandstone, the standing stones of Dubai Biat. You can see on the map that we have moved much more to the north, and they come from the Ordovician period, are around 485 million years old, and they were standing of what was then a shoreline, so they were standing on the beach. Also here you will find on different horizon pebbles marking the water flows, and the area is totally otherworldly. I must say that the north is getting better with every picture. I hope you agree with me at the end of the talk. Jebel Mahaja also carries marks of past wetter periods, not only the periods of inundation of marine origin, but also periods of flowing rivers and fast flowing rivers, evidence of glaciations, and also glaciers scratching the surface, leaving marks behind. This solitary formation contains several arches, and it's a standalone feature, remainder of what must have been a much larger sandstone plateau. Here a couple of other pictures to show the surroundings and how this this formation looks like from different angles, because also caused by the different wind regime, it has been eroding chaotically in this manner. But this is the surface area, so there is a lot of duri crusts left by the mineral-rich water flowing here, but there is also evidence if we move further, as I said, it only gets better. We are moving to the upland desert again. This is the margin of the Arabian platform, still the Paleozoic sandstones, but slowly underlain by the Arabian Shield igneous rocks. In this area is currently a part of Neom, which perhaps in the future will make it more difficult to visit. We were lucky to be there before this area has been fenced off. The fencing goes steadily forward to protect the vegetation and to protect animals that will be reintroduced here. Perhaps it's good from the perspective of visiting areas. It's maybe less convenient. But the Jebel Hisma is a remnant of a dissected ancient sandstone plateau and contains formations that are 542 to 448 million years old. Mostly sandstone and mudstones, Hisma contains significant groundwater reservoirs. Actually, in Arabic, I was told that it means Hisma, it has water. This more or less explains why there is some sort of attraction of being in this area, although it was not very thickly inhabited because of the belief that jinns, the evil spirits, inhabit this area, and this is caused by the frequently changing weather in this area. The sandstorm can whip up within a minute, and even when we were there, all of a sudden the wind picks up, everything becomes dark. There is a short, heavy sandstorm, and then rain. But then the rocks became even more saturated. The sand became even more saturating. So the experience was from out of this world, more or less. There are plenty of relatively young faults and fissures in this area of Saudi Arabia. This is also Neom, the so-called Wadi Atas, or Al-Shaq in Arabic, which means the tear. Excuse me. The faults and fissures, they formed, they are younger than 30 billion years. And they was undergoing extension by rotational faulting at the time of Red Sea spreading. And this area near Tabuk is part of a large geologic structure that is ridden by such faults and fissures. You can actually see the fault right here, and this area is also undergoing a continuous uplift, like the rest of the area of northwest Saudi Arabia. But the sandstones here also are part of the Hisma Plateau. Now we are dangerously moving already into the Arabian Shield, but still we stay within these Paleozoic sandstones. So here, heavily dissected sandstone canyonlands of Wadi Karakir, which probably most of you have heard of as Wadi Disa. But Disa is the name of the village that is down in the Wadi. On the picture here, we see the plateau, this dissected plateau here, a huge, this is actually where the road is coming, but this is already a very wide area of erosion. And on top of the plateau, we can also see black or darker elements, and this is Harat al-Raha and Harat al-Uwairid. So the Cenozoic lava flows covered the top of the plateau. Perhaps this is why its dissections or erosion becomes in a different way, happens in a different way than these other sections of the Hisma Plateau. Under on the bottom of the canyon, so this is the area halfway through, more or less. This is the top, and here on this picture you can see the high walls of one of the many wadis that cut through this plateau. This is one nicely vegetated. The water is flowing here year round, and that's why it has been always used to plant palm trees, hence the name Disa. the wadi of palm trees, and used for agriculture. Also fruit trees are being planted there. Now this area is a protected area, the main wadi, but the local people live in the surrounding wadis, continuing like they were in the past as well. Some of these walls of the wadi, they are 300 to 500 meters in height, so quite a spectacular narrow wadi winding down from this escarpment covered by the lava fields. If we move further to the surroundings of Al Ula, I will not be talking about Al Ula. I'm quite sure most of you have even been or have read about it a lot. I will just show a couple of very beautiful sandstone formations and remnants of the plateau around Al Ula. One of them is Al-Sharan, which is now a nature reserve. These are formations left. These are the formations that you can find in this ancient sandstone plateau, which over millions of years weathered into magnificent landscape of pillars, freestanding pillars, and aging 500 to 485 million years. During the Paleozoic era, especially in the Cambrian-Ordovician periods, enormous amounts of sediments were deposited from the rapidly eroding continent Gondwana. And at this time, the climate was very different than it is today. The entire area and most of Al Ula was underwater, and they have been uplifted together with the rest of the area of northwest of Saudi, a process that continues today, powered by our culprit, the Red Sea spreading, and the Dead Sea transform fault. The Sharan with the pillars of all kinds, interesting structures, sandstone variations in weathering, all of them very impermanent. Like this arch, of course, it is also bound to collapse one day, but right now it's definitely a landmark. And also here, among the sediments, you will find those pebbles, the same ones as we saw closer to Riyadh, on the other side of the Arabian platform edge, if I can call it this way. Also here, different horizons, different speeds of water flowing can be seen through these pebbles. We finally managed to move to the Arabian Shield, even though the sandstones that we saw on the previous slide are in fact part of the Arabian Shield itself. But the Arabian Shield is also an area of enormous landscape diversity. The rocks forming the shield are accreted island arcs that were sutured together and part of the Arabian Nubian Shield in the past. Only recently in the geologic time, about 30 million years ago, they have been broken apart, and now Arabian Shield is part of the Arabian continent, Arabian Peninsula. Many of the rocks that we see in the Arabian Shield are granites, and they are different granites, both gray and potassium-rich pink ones. Here on the pictures, we see a lot of plutons, exhumed plutons, and granitic copies that very much resemble the landscape that we see in Africa. So back to Africa. That is the reason. Those plutonic landscapes are of a different age. Usually the gray ones are older in provenance than the pink ones. These are areas of Badwa al-Ulia, and the plutons and the granitic mountains are called Hadabat or Dil in Arabic. And they are the most spectacular landscapes that you will ever see. There are vast areas of land, very few people living there, and those vast spaces, and definitely everybody feels dwarfed standing here again, the car for scale, standing next to these granite mountains. But the Arabian Shield is much more than granite alone. There are volcano sedimentary rocks occurring in those bands of different terrains, because also the Arabian Shield is formed from different terrains. These island arcs that I mentioned accreted over time. The one that is the youngest of them all is called Ar-Rhein terrain, and that's the closest to where we live in Riyadh. So this is where we mostly go if we only have a weekend to go to the desert. But even there, you can find a potassium-rich red granite. Here, this one forming a wadi, and nice domes that appear between the terrains. Sometimes they crop out. They are also used by temporary waterfalls that clean them up and make them visible if you are passing. Perhaps the most eye-catching feature of the Arabian Shield are the basaltic dikes that cut through the landscape everywhere. These dikes were formed in 6 cycles in the Arabian Shield, and most were intruded after the plutons were injected, the plutons that we saw exhumed on the previous picture. In 3 episodes, they were also deformed. Those dikes were deformed together with the rock with which they were injected. After that, so these first episodes were taking place between 800 and 760 million years, and the third one 640 million years ago. The next 2 took place 506 and 540 million years, and they were post-tectonic and associated with this granitic alkaline plutonism, so the pink granites, and they are usually not deformed. And the final episode of these dike swarms, as they are called, occurred 20 million years ago, and resulted in the intrusion of long-range dikes of 1,500 meters and up to 1 kilometer wide, and most of them were composed mostly of olivine basalt. This last episode of injection is related to the first evolutionary stage of the Red Sea rifting. Together with the mafic dikes, we also have quartzite veins. So that's also, they are crisscrossing the granite all over the Arabian Shield. Some of the intrusions are andesitic, so they are red in color. Different type of magma batches produces different results, so the colors are also different. It's not the same kind of basalt. In this youngest terrain, Ar-Rhein contains lots of schists and highly deformed volcanic rocks and granitoids in the area around Al-Amar. This is where the gold and mineral deposits are being found, and there is a mine mining activity continues, develops, as I mentioned in the beginning of the talk. There are many rare earth elements, and there is increased mining activity in this area, and more mining permits are being given every year. It's caused by the prices of the minerals and gold that make the mining even more economically viable these days. I probably don't give enough credit to this Arabian Shield, but I have to move on because I would still like to present a couple of nice features that perhaps are of interest to some of you. When we move west from the margins of the Arabian Shield towards parallel to the Red Sea, we will find volcanic lava fields or harat, which there are 13 of in the Arabian Shield area. Most of these lava fields are, or in Arabic is harat, they are called harat. They are small volume. Sorry, they are Cenozoic in age and no older than 20 years, 20 million years. They are strictly related to the Red Sea rifting and the intrusion of magmas along the margins of the Arabian Plate. They mostly contain small volume volcanoes, fissure-fed volcanoes, cinder cones, spatter cones, lava domes, but there is also quite a number of maar craters. Additionally, the volcanic vents run parallel to the Red Sea and its fault system. And here a few examples of those lava fields, just a few. As I said, there are 13 of them. This is a selection. The youngest, the Hutaima Hamra volcano on the Harat Hutaima lava field. It's a complex volcano also with a pre-maar feature. And also at this point is one of the geosites that is being developed by the Saudi Ministry of Tourism. A little bit further to the south, because we've been most intracontinental is this Harat Hutaima, the youngest one of the Harats. If we go a little bit south, we find the Harat Khaybar, and Harat Khaybar is famous for its white volcanoes, Jebel Abyad and Jebel Al-Baida. Both of them think their color is caused by the comenditic lava, and one of the volcanoes here, Jebel Al-Baida, is actually a dome. Jebel Al-Baida is actually white male version and female version. This is what the volcanoes are called in Arabic. What makes it such a spectacular sight, these two volcanoes are really like snow-capped mountain because they are surrounded by the jet black lava flow of Jebel Al-Qidr, which is a stratovolcano and the tallest volcano in this area, and it inundated the whole area with lava flow surrounding these volcanoes. So the image is absolutely stunning. But these kind of harats, they contain a lot of underground water, and once the molten magma moves to the surface and touches this underground body of water, it explodes violently, creating maar craters. The most famous of these is the Al-Waba crater in Harat Kishb, which is 2 kilometers diameter. But it's by far not the only crater in the volcanic Harat of the Arabian Shield. There are also mark craters in the north, in this youngest Harat Hutaima, smaller in scale. So this is definitely the most impressive one. Lots of olivine that can be still found along the edges of the crater. Practical note, these days it is not allowed to go down the crater. There is actually a tourist facility built around it, and there is a security personnel making sure that you do not go down. Apparently there were some accidents, and now unfortunately the party is spoiled to everyone. But in this crater, because also there is quite a bit of water in this area and the water is seeping down into the crater, usually there are ephemeral lakes in these kind of structures, and they change the perspective, they change the climate even in the area. There is a special microclimate within this Waba crater. A little bit further down, this is how the volcanic landscape could look like if there is a little bit of water. This definitely looks like Africa. I mean, when I'm looking at this picture, the only thing I'm missing is some animals, and I will be right there. This behind here is Jabal al-Hill, and also a volcano. And in the spaces between the lava, there is a lot of silt and water supporting all these kind of hidden gardens and hidden areas of growth. One last feature that I would like to mention is from another Harat Nawasif al-Bukum, where we have been last year, because I wanted to visit the most famous lava tube in Saudi Arabia. So this is it, Gar al-Hibashi lava tube, a hole in the ground, but it is also one of the most important caves in Saudi Arabia, with passages as long as 541 meters in length that contain both animal and human remains. So both human skull was found there. But the cave floor is covered by 1.5 meter layer of silt, guano deposits, desiccated scat of hyenas, wolves, foxes, you name it. So it's not a very fresh environment to actually go and explore. If you happen to go there, make sure you have a mask with you, because it's really, even if you are very careful, very quickly becomes rather difficult to breathe in there. But this lava tube is also famous for yellowish small biostalactites that are formed from bat urine and can be found in the ceiling deeper in the cave. The cave itself is about 9 million years old. So whether this is, it's not a difficult passage. Lava tube is actually pretty convenient, comfortable to walk in, but this is not a place to go unprepared. Going back towards leaving the Harat behind and moving towards the Red Sea, we find the mountains. I do not have time to talk about the mountains, unfortunately, but because I want to talk about those sandstones again, I want to mention that the mountains of Asir, the Sarawat escarpment, and the mountains of Hejaz are responsible for creating rain shadow effect, and that causes suffering on the other side of the mountains, but it causes also abundance of water reservoirs and springs on the west side of the mountains. One of those places that takes advantage of it is Wadi Lajab, It's a very long wadi, 40 kilometers long. The wadi, the gorge, which is seen on the picture here, is at an altitude of about 1,200 meters, and this gorge is about the gorge section is 11 kilometers long. It also has more or less difficult passages to go to, but definitely worth scrambling about the rocks. The porous sandstone walls enable water retention and gradual release, allowing the water flow throughout the year. Again, those sandstones that have been carved to create this gorge come from the Cambro-Ordovician period, so the same period as we have seen the other Paleozoic rocks surrounding the Arabian Shield. Wadi Lajab is definitely a biodiversity hotspot and incredibly fragile ecosystem, especially now with the growing tourism. Hopefully, there will be some kind of enforced protection of this area. There are mosses, ferns, flowering plants, rare trees, palm species, even orchids. There is the whole list of plants that are growing in this area. In terms of animals, they also, of course, take advantage of a nice shady area with lots of water. And one of them is Hamadryas baboon, that can not only be seen around the ledges of Wadi Rajab, but mostly heard as they fight among each other. They make a lot of noise, and because tourism is developing and they are very clever animals, they always steal food from the tourists and run into the ledges, fight among each other. It's a very entertaining wadi in any case. But from other animals, there are African gray hornbill that can be found here, birds of paradise, and Asir magpie, that is a rare species. Also, this area actually is on the Precambrian basement of the Arabian Shield, and if you actually which we have driven the lower part of the wadi as well, you see all the amazing volcanic rock that is creating the base of the wadi. Last but not least, my most favorite area visited in the last couple of years, Jebel al-Kahar, literally a stone throw away from Wadi Lajab, the Jizan Mountains, the most incredible place. Sandstone capped plateau, a lot of moisture, even at 2,000 meters elevation. Actually, it feels very humid. It feels unlike you are in the mountain at this altitude. There is a lot of vegetation on this plateau. There is enough vegetation in the limestone hills of this dissected plateau. It's just an incredible area. Even here, you see enormous evidence of huge water flows, of being submerged, or there is ginormous duricrusts and ferricrete layers between the rocks. And of course, unbelievable landscape. There is and that incredible views. Everywhere you go, you actually, since you are on top of this plateau with this interesting sandstone formations, which are too steep to climb, but you can go to some smaller ones around them, and you have to, of course, fight the vegetation along the way. There are termite colonies, so they actually, again, it's something that you would say it feels like Africa. In terms of population, I think this is the only area of Saudi Arabia which perhaps the inhabitants are a bit less friendly than in other parts of Saudi Arabia. And the reason for that is it's very difficult to access this place. In most cases, a very steep plateau. There is a one road leading to it. It's a dirt track, and it gets, because of the flash floods, it gets removed and destroyed a couple of times a year. So they are probably not used to receiving too many visitors. Nevertheless, if you ever have a chance to go to a place that is still feels like an undiscovered world, with animals like rock hyrax and wolf and caracal and ibex, and lots of birds, which you will hear all the time, this is definitely the place to be. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you developed some interest about Saudi Arabia, you can join my online platform, Saudi Natural History Community, which I have established because I was missing my natural history group, I must say honestly. Or you can check out my recent publication. My book is called Through the Sense of Color, and it contains 700 images and flora, fauna, and geology of Saudi Arabia, and it can be found in Jarir Bookstores. With this, time for your questions.
I guess here, right now, the only question that we've had come in whilst you were speaking was a question about, are there any active volcanoes currently in Saudi Arabia?
Not that I know of. The last eruption was in 1236 in Medina. So at this point, they are dormant. But you never know, with the reactivation of faults in the Red Sea, you never know what can happen.
One of the things which I posted as a reply was that there are ongoing earthquakes. So fairly recent one in the last 7 days in around Riyadh.
The earthquakes, yes, the earthquakes are occurring, but this is mostly related to this activity in the north. I mean, to the Dead Sea Fault, transform fault, and not necessarily to the volcanic activity, from what I know, unless there is someone that has other information. Then I don't believe that this is a unsafe country. To say that, it is actually a very safe country. It's I think that from all the places that I have visited, this was the most pleasant place to be. Visiting, even camping in very isolated places, yes, it can be dangerous. You have to be prepared. Have a satellite telephone with you. That's also something that you have to think about. But in general, it's a very safe place.
Another question coming from Francis, asking if you fly to most of these locations, or do you engage in very long road trips?
Yes, a combination. Some places we go, okay, both of them have advantages and disadvantages. If you fly, you are missing the road trip. But if you have made the road trips many times before, then at a certain point you really want to, you don't want to waste your time going through the same area. So we do also fly. We send the car ahead of us. You can send them on a vehicle transport to a destination, and you fly to this destination, take your car, and then you explore your area. And this way you save the time, and maybe not the money, but you save the time going further that you would normally be able to do. Saying that this is exactly a bit of a problem for the tourist industry in Saudi Arabia, because everybody thinks, yeah, we want to see all these places. You only don't realize that the place is so huge that going to those places at, let's say, a window of 2 weeks vacation, you probably spend a lot of this time either sitting in the car or going from airport to airport, because the distances are quite significant.
At this time, we don't have further questions. Gary, do you have any questions that you want to bring up?
You saved me typing one. I've been taking notes furiously, realizing that it would be more efficient to buy the book. But one question that many questions occurred to me along the way, because I hadn't previously been exposed to the nature of the widespread in time activity in the West, but in the East, where I have worked on some of the similar sediments here in the Emirates. You mentioned that the Arabian Shelf includes Mesozoic and Cenozoic sediments. Is the Cretaceous Tertiary boundary exposed and studied anywhere in Saudi, and what does it look like? Or is it it's still officially still a blank, and nobody seems to know here in the Emirates, where we have sediments that potentially cross the boundary, but
so the only place I know that this has been done, but how deep they go with the study, I cannot tell, is this Tumama Depression, because it's laying exactly on this boundary. So you, and because it's in this national park, there was a, there was a study being done in the past 2 years. They are extremely slow in producing their brochure, because they want to have a brochure for the park, and other geologists are not allowed to study, only the ones from the park. So I know that they have been working on it, and especially there is exactly this boundary between the Cretaceous. We have the Cretaceous rudists, and actually super nicely exposed rudist horizons. And then going down towards the dissolving sediments of the Jurassic, and below the sediments of the Biat sandstone. This is actually on the other side of the boundary already, but this is the only place I know. But I can still check in my documents, and if I find something, I will send you the link to the research paper if I find one.
okay, it's an interesting question. I had the feeling that if there was a good exposure to the boundary, there would be more people studying it. It's a little bit disappointing to find that for something of, I hate to use the expression, potentially earth-shaking significance, that the study is limited to the park people only, but we have experience with similar situations here in the Emirates, so
it is not necessarily, sorry to interrupt you, it is not necessarily that that maybe the study has been not done here before. Perhaps I don't know about it, because some of the research papers have only recently been available online. So there is the access to this kind of materials is somewhat limited. I remember 10 years ago when I was really searching for any kind of information, geological information about any area of Saudi Arabia, then you get the paper from 40 years ago when they started petrologic exploration, and there was nothing else available through the ResearchGate, for example. Right now, there is a lot of papers available, and also the authors put them online themselves. As I said, it was extremely difficult to get any kind of official, especially geologic information. Years ago, I have applied for a job to the Saudi Geological Survey. There was a wrong time. Women were not allowed. Obviously, I didn't have a degree, but I was thinking that at that time, maybe I could learn something from them. Absolutely not possible. But times have changed, and some of these papers are trickling back online. So perhaps there is more that I know of.
It would be interesting, but there people, obviously, academics are actively looking everywhere for the best continuous exposures across that. The other thing, at one point, in my notes, I have you talked about the rivers flowing to the ocean and so on. Am I correct that for most of the time that we're talking about, from at least until about 30 million years ago, when you talk about sediments being deposited and the rivers flowing, all those rivers making the concretions and so on, flowing to the ocean, that they're not flowing west to where the Red Sea is, they're flowing across most of Arabia to
That's right.
an ocean to the east. Okay.
Yes, yes. So going in a different direction, indeed.
This is something I think people here don't necessarily recognize, that most of the sediments in our own desert, Western Abu Dhabi, are not from within the UAE or even Oman. That a lot of them came from Saudi via the long extension of Wadi Del Asir.
That's right. Also, the water flow during Gondwana, the flows were different. The way that the landscape, as I said, this landscape in the northwest is being uplifted. I mean, in the past 30 million years, the uplift is only accelerating. So also these rivers would have flown partially in a different direction, I would presume.
Here we also had a question from Sonia asking about the, let's say, tourism infrastructure to help visit some of the places you've described. Is it possible to do it as part of a group visit, a potential future Dubai Natural History Group excursion? Is it individual or group?
I think that's a good question, and I have been asked this question before as well. The best way to travel through Saudi is by car and camping along the way where you can. These days, there are more and more restrictions in regards to camping. There are lots of areas that are fenced off, as I mentioned earlier. And for some areas, protected areas, they are not even natural parks. There are permits necessary. There are some tourist travel organizations that arrange trips, for example, to the empty quarter. It's like a week trip. Most of those are prohibitively expensive, in my opinion. So I am not sure if this is something to be done by a group. But the price is related to the amount of preparation that you have. You have to have a couple of vehicles. You have to have enough water if you're going to places that are quite far away. So that becomes the cost of the adventure. If you do it on your own, it is possible, but I would still prefer to arrange it with someone who knows the area rather than going on your own. couple of years ago, I have been working with. I was actually asked in Dubai to help with a part of the landscape in Saudi Arabia to produce a book that is called Al Dalila, and was supposed to be the kind of book that we have in the UAE, the Explorer, UAE Explorer and Oman Explorer, giving routes to destinations so people can actually go by themselves following the GPS coordinates or the map. The problem with Saudi Arabia is that because of these large distances and because there is no infrastructure like somewhere half the way, you really have to do this as your own in your own time and with your own preparation. It's doable. I think that some certain sections, especially of Saudi Arabia, they could be easily done from the UAE. Requires quite serious driving, and in other places, then you would have to rely on flying to one area and exploring locally with the guides. That unfortunately is still a pricey adventure, because Saudi Arabia really wants to cash in on those early bird tourists, and there is no low price or medium price accommodation. They are all in the 7-star plus kind of margin. So just very expensive to do a trip on your own. But I'm happy to help with some ideas to maybe help organize some. Help organize is maybe too big, but in any case, I could offer whatever information I have on where to go, where to book something. I know that Sonia has been arranging so many trips, and I'm quite sure she would be interested to arrange something for Saudi Arabia. So depending on the time frame, how much time people are willing to go on a trip like this, then I'm quite sure something can be arranged on a slightly different budget.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Oops. I was asked to unmute myself. I don't see it properly. I would like to know actually a bit more about the peridot mining in Saudi. So I would assume with the amount of volcanic eruptions that you will find mantle xenolites as well as yeah, I don't know how the peridot is so well developed that it is mined, and I would like to know a little bit more about it.
Unfortunately, I cannot tell you much about the mining of the peridot. I didn't even know that it is being mined. I think it is probably I don't think there is an official mining of peridotite. As I said, I never heard of this activity. I know this is obviously the natural the stone of Saudi Arabia, but I am not aware about mining activity of olivine.
Yeah,
So, sorry,
I read about it.
Yes.
Okay, so you have never seen the xenolites, the mantle xenolites, and also not the exposure of the peridot.
Yes, those I have seen, but not in the mining environment. When you go to volcanic areas, there is olivine just about everywhere. Even on the outcrops of the around the Mar craters, on the margins of the craters, there is peridotite, very tiny crystals, but you find them there. In some areas, sometimes you find them within the basaltic rock. either in
Yeah.
the basalt itself, or you find them in the vesicular basalt as a xenolith. And but mining, I did not hear, so I cannot answer that question.
So the question is it just the olivine as a crystal? Or
Yes.
is it mantle xenolite, which means you would have like material brought up with the eruption, with the magma, where you can it's not an inclusion then, but you have like a xenolite, which means you have the olivine crystals in contact with each other and maybe also with other minerals. So it's a fragment from the mantle. So it's two different things. Once you have the mineral as an inclusion,
Yeah.
and once you have a real fragment as a mantle, both is possible actually. And the question is, have you seen both, and in which amounts is it there?
I have seen only olivine as an inclusion,
Okay.
and I have seen it in small sections of the lava within those Mars craters. But I have not seen it. I don't know of ones that are actually ejected.
Okay. Okay, thank you. It was a nice presentation and a lot of fantastic pictures.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? To some extent, I think I certainly was, I never forgot the geology, but just the travelogue aspects of this, places which I'm afraid my time is running out for trotting around a lot of those places, but it was certainly nice to see them. And I'm sure that everybody else feels the same way. These are places. The UAE had very little travel infrastructure just 30 years or so ago, but it's a much smaller place, so one could mount mini expeditions to travel. I think you're right. Saudi is it's a little early for to be planning to come in from outside without lots of local knowledge and plan, multi-day expeditions covering lots of territory. But anyway, we now know who to speak to if somebody's, for better or worse.
Whatever I can help with some
somebody
tracks, etc. But it needs to be a well-prepared expedition. As I say, what we do here. My husband is a map specialist, so he's preparing our own tracks. We decide where to go weekly, and then we explore the area in detail. And we try always to go every time in a different, just use the other wadi. I mean, we have a limited, in just the weekend trips, you can only make, say, 700 kilometers if you want to see something. If you have an extra day, you can go further. Usually you can start driving earlier to arrive, to have more time to explore if you have to go back to work. But it is quite possible to make a trip, for example, to the north and see everything. There is such a phenomenal landscape along the way if you drive from Riyadh to Hail. So it can be done in a more comfortable way. I don't think you can avoid camping entirely, but you can, for example, drive and then stay in a hotel in a bigger city, explore in the surrounding, in the area, and then maybe stay one night camping explore a little bit more, otherwise you will be going up and down to the same spot, then go to the next hotel. This is what we've been doing on our almost 3 weeks, 3 weeks of trip to the north, all the way to Hackle, and then along the Red Sea. Spectacular landscapes. I think it's possible to do a nice trip, for example, drive to Riyadh, if one has the time, drive to Riyadh, rest after this journey from the UAE, then travel further. If you have not explored the area of the Tuwaiq or the vicinity here, then you can do that as well. I mean, you can take as long as or short as you wish. It's a huge area, so there is always something of value that you see and of interest. If you want to go further after Riyadh, then you can go to Hail and explore the volcanic areas, as well as continue further afield to the Nafud. For those that like sandier areas as well, I didn't even mention them, but there is like so many beautiful dune areas, the outliers of the Nafud in the south. I mean, it's just a never-ending feast of landscapes.
You're certainly endorsing a strategy that gets you around. You make a list of all the places. Each one you've done, you check off. You go to the next one. Some of us have tried to do that here on a somewhat smaller canvas. Let me with that, you've been speaking for an hour and a half without a break. Let me say thank you very much for visiting us at a distance, and especially for sharing with you places that I think I'm fair to say most of us will probably never get to see, although we hope to see some of them. Thank you for keeping us in mind and agreeing to present to us. And we'll be sending you a copy of this before we put it on online. So I don't know how we applaud because most people are muted and masked, but a big hand for Gosia, and we hope to see you back here occasionally. Is that the way we do it? Thumbs up? Okay. We're in a
Thank you
thumbs
very
up.
much for the invitation. It was a pleasure. I hope I have revealed some things about Saudi, and I hope that you can come and visit in the future. There is lots to explore.